Welcome to Clarity Digital Pod. I'm your host, Al Safati. In this episode, I sit down with Tiana Nove, CEO of Moonboost Marketing, to talk all things social media. We explore how brands can use storytelling, platform-specific strategy, AI tools, and sales marketing alignment to drive real impact. Whether you're in B2B or B2C, this one's packed with insights you can put to work. All right, ready, set, go. Hi, Tiana. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Very good. So, if you don't mind introducing yourself for our audience, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to meet everyone. My name is Tiana, and I am the founder and CEO of Moonboost Marketing. I've been in marketing about 11 years, having spent the primary time in my career in tech, working for names like Adobe, Unity, Dapper Labs, and started my own agency about 2 years ago. And I focus on branding and social media.
Very cool. 2 years ago, did it have anything to do with COVID, or is it just you decided that was time?
I had been working at my last company for a year and a half, and I knew that was going to be my last company because it was always on my mind and heart
Yeah,
to be an entrepreneur. And I
yeah.
learned a lot from working with pro athletes, working like the company when I joined it was 600 people. Then we spun off, became 20 people. So got that real entrepreneurial feel. And I feel like after seeing the way that business was run, I was like, okay, it's my time. I've learned what I need to learn in the corporate, and it's time to spread my wings and try it on my own.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you're doing something that is actually very much needed these days for digital marketing. When I started into marketing, SEO was really the hot topic, the top skill everybody needed. It still is, but I think over the years, social media, depending on the type of business you're in, is really making its mark and its impact on businesses. I was just speaking to another client where they had this ton of sale of TikTok. So let's just get talk about social media, the importance of social media, state of social media marketing today. What should businesses do? All that good stuff.
Yeah, let's get into it. So I
Yeah,
feel like in today's day and age, you cannot have a business without being on social media, without people seeing and feeling your brand. And the way to do that is to be like authentic about your story. And that's my passion, is telling founders stories so that people get to understand what your heart is, right? And what's in there, but then come towards your product for that reason. Whether that's one of my recent clients, like Treasure Data is like a 600-person customer data platform software, right? But then taking the essence of the heart that the CMO has and the passion the CEO put into the technology and how they created it. So my whole thing is like making sure that those values are communicated in every touch point on social as I manage their organic social. So I think whether you're a 600-person company or a one person entrepreneur kicking off your business, I think that it's relevant for every level of the game, and especially for, you want to stay top of mind, you want to be a thought leader, you want to be known for your area and your expertise. So I think it's something that everyone needs, that ability to tell their story, their passion, why people should come to them. So I think social media plays such a pivotal role in that and gives people have such a platform now that didn't exist 30 years ago or 10.
yeah.
So I think we're in such a unique time, but also able to get in front of so many people, which is so amazing.
No, I agree with you. I was looking at the traffic for our own agency, and a few years ago, when social media was around and kicking, the amount of traffic we were getting from social media was far less than what we're getting today. Part of the fact is that we're doing a lot more on social media, but it also talks to consumer, the way the consumer consume content, right? They're more on social media than on Google looking for 2,000 word blog posts, right? They prefer short form content that is very engaging, that has videos or even memes, right? And I think businesses, as you said, need to take social media very seriously if they want to continue to grow. But I did have a question for you. A lot of businesses I worked with in the past, even larger organizations, don't take the time to have a social media strategy, and they just wing it. Whenever they have a blog post, they publish it. When I have a news, they just put it there. And all of that stuff is okay too, but how important is it to have a more proactive social media strategy that aligns with your brand guideline and tone? And maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like paramount and so important because I don't believe in like random acts of marketing. And I think if you just every time like a blog post comes out and you're like, okay, let's get one post out, you're not getting the mileage out of that piece, right? Because you had people write it, work on it, create the assets, put in the time, the effort, whether that's, let's say videos were produced to support. And if we're just posting it one time and not
Mhm.
really thinking about the longevity, the business isn't getting the mileage out of it. And then the end user isn't getting the long term value. So you have to create the strategy for the business of, hey, what are the things we want to be known for? How do we then, and what are our goals? Like goals, biggest thing, right? Are we driving webinar registrations or are we caring more about awareness or like finding out what that is so that the strategy can then support that, whether it's campaign strategy or like an overall channel strategy. So to me, always being able to roll that up into that bigger strategy because you can't, let's say we have 10 pieces of content, 20 pieces, 30, whatever. Like you have to map that out in a way that will be consumed and received, timed out, as well as rolling it up to those larger goals, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, and it's interesting. I have clients coming to me, "Okay, we need a content or social media calendar." First of all, we prefer not to do organic social media. We're more on the paid side, but whenever we have to do it, we're pulling experts like you. And when we look at the stuff they already have, you have all this content, right? All this blog posts, all this good content on your website. Have you tried to push those on social media? And they're like, "Oh, yeah, but we published it." I'm like, "No, you can repurpose a lot of that, and turn them into." You said the word longevity. Yeah, you shared this blog post 6 months ago. What is the plan now? Do you want to bring it back up again, or maybe take parts of that blog post and turn it into a banner? What are some of the tactical strategies for clients like that? They already have content, they just have to kind of like rethink the way and
Absolutely.
repurpose the content.
So something I think is so important in today's age, and especially for LinkedIn, is like having a
Mhm.
strong point of view, like a point of view at all. Like it's one thing to be like, check out these 5 tips from this Forbes article, right? That's no point of
Mhm.
view, just sharing article, right? That's not going to get much engagement. Whereas if you
Yeah.
say something that's polarizing or something that's a strong point of view, that's actually your own thought. I've worked with a lot of C-suite executives to then take, let's say, the same imaginary blog post we're talking about, if they were to then say, hey, my point of view on this blog post is this, and here's my key takeaways and what I learned and what I think is valuable for my audience, that's going to be a
Mhm.
much stronger tie back to said blog. Or so bringing in the leadership so that it isn't, because people are going to trust people over a brand any day, right? So if let's say your CMO and CEO are talking about this piece or this campaign, people are going to trust that more than they would trust it necessarily from the brand itself. But obviously, I think singing from the same sheet of music from all three is where you find that like sweet spot. And then being able to make it tactical in that way by adding that strong point of view over it.
So take a side. When you're sharing something on social media, don't be neutral. Just have an opinion about it. Take a position, right? That's what you take. Very cool. I'm glad you brought in LinkedIn. I find I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I share stuff on LinkedIn, but I also find it to be a very noisy place. And and how do you stand out? One tip that you just provided was to have a strong opinion about something. But what are some of the tips on LinkedIn, for example? Do you have any specific tips? Different platforms are going to have their different audience. How does a LinkedIn post? How should your LinkedIn strategy be different? Let's say your Facebook strategy or Instagram strategy.
So I think it goes back to the goals of the person slash company. So if you're trying to be known as a thought leader, those goals are very different than if, let's say, you're trying to drive clients to your agency, right? Those are different. So like my husband, for example, he works in the CPG space and his goal is to be a thought leader in the space because he knows so much. He is always analyzing brands. So he'll come to me and we'll sit together and we'll look at different brands and their evaluations and what they've accomplished. And then we'll craft a post. And then like he actually had one this week that went viral, and it's cool to see the algorithm evolve because it prioritizes different things in different spaces based on the topic area. We looked at this protein bar brand called David, and in the last 9 months they have 175 million in funding, and the way that they've done their packaging, their labeling, their branding, all this stuff. So we covered that. And but then he added his own point of view to it, which is what made it the like point of polarization, that people started commenting like a ton and tagging other people. And it was also because of the fact that was the top post about this topic that made it trend to get, I think at this point, 500,000 views on LinkedIn in the 4 days since we posted it. So I think it depends again on your goal. So if becoming a thought leader, I'd say take that strong point of view, cover different things that people actually would find interesting. What are people in your space actually talking about, finding interesting? What are, like, I would look at based on your industry, what are the topics? What are the ways that they're distilling the content? And then how can you add your own twist? But then again, if you're trying to draw in clients, that's a different goal. If you're a CMO of a big company and you want to drive awareness of your company, again, that's a different way to position yourself. But again, I'd say fundamentally it would be being consistent, but not in a way that's overbearing, engaging with other creators as well, commenting, being active. And then if you're doing it from a brand perspective, then making sure that it's diversified, but driving true value, as well as obviously showcasing all the content you're creating.
Very cool. The one thing I got out of this is first have a goal. They just don't just create content for sake of creating content. Have a goal and then work toward that goal.
Exactly.
All right. How is it like being married to another marketer?
He's actually in sales, but he did study marketing. So we both have the passion
Yeah.
for that. So we're often like brand obsessed together and get to talk through how did they do it and what got them there and what is it that's making them successful so that we can emulate for, at least for me, like the brands I get to work with on a daily basis. And how can I pull from those successful strategies, but relate it to my clients' industries. Because I think that even something that works and is cool in the CPG space could work in super technical tech space, but with a different twist. So to me, I love finding those examples and then even pulling them in. Like I have a client who's an influencer and her space is so different from tech, but there's things I can pull. Like my husband shared an example of this other brand called the Belgian Boys that did this really cool, like exclusive merch drop to drive newsletter signups. And
Yeah.
so I'm implementing what I saw from that, obviously in a much
Yeah.
different space, but for my influencer client to create exclusivity and drive value for her community.
That's interesting you say that because especially in the B2B space, there's so much overlap between sales and marketing there. And I think sorry about the background noise. I can't escape the noise today. This is the third office I'm trying at WeWork, and I love this place, but it's a little noisy. But yeah, sales and marketing, right? I think the main alignment in the B2B marketing, I find it to be very important. And when marketing teams and sales teams don't talk or they're in this unhealthy competition, sales versus marketing, it tends to create a really an environment that creates friction in an environment that is not very useful. And but having a collaboration between sales and marketing, because salespeople, they have their angle to things that could actually be amplified and utilized as a marketing strategy or vice versa. I'm glad you brought it up. Your husband, sales guy, but they use a strategy to drive newsletter sign up, which you're going to mimic and implement in your social media strategy. So that's a really good case study of how sales and marketing should work together.
Yeah, and even to like piggyback onto that, I think the working together of sales and marketing is so important because that's how you tell a full story with data. Is sure I could do my campaigns here, but if I don't hear what the customer is looking for and what their pain points are, like I would often ask the sales team at Treasure Data, for example, like I would get on the phone with them and be like, what are the pain points? What are you hearing live that I could then change my messaging to match that? So that when people are reading our posts that are going live, that's they're like, boom, that's my pain point. They're meeting it. Cool. I want to work with this company, but they see it over and over again. So like to me, it would be a huge miss for marketing and sales to not sync up on pain points, what's being said in customer calls, as well as like telling the full story of, hey, we had this many touch points on the marketing side. You guys had this conversation. What was the thing that like sealed the deal so that you can tell that full story with data, which is like my favorite thing to do.
No, I can talk about sales and marketing alignment or lack of alignment from my experience. I'm glad we're having this conversation. We do a lot of B2B and SaaS marketing, and the difference between the successful companies and the ones that aren't is just exactly having that good, healthy collaboration and relationship between sales and marketing. A lot of CMOs that I worked with that had a sales background that learned marketing and became CMOs, and they're really good CMOs. So that's really interesting. Let's go talk about social media again. A lot of is changing because of AI. And how are you embracing AI? How are you utilizing AI part of your social media strategies and day-to-day management activities.
Absolutely. ChatGPT and I were very close.
Mhm,
No, I think AI is such an amazing asset to any marketer, to any person in business, but I think it doesn't replace the knowledge that marketers have because you still need to be able to train it on the voice, the goals, the how to frame the content because you're the one with the context of
mhm,
what needs to be communicated in this message with this specific asset. Does it roll into the larger plan, the larger strategy? And let's say it's one clip of 20 that you're promoting, you're going to know that it's how you talk in the first ones. You want it to be different than how you talk in the 10th one to the final one. So to me, I think it's a huge asset, but
mhm.
it is in no way, in my mind, a replacement for the expertise that marketers have overall. Because if, like, for example, you say, ChatGPT, create a social media copy for this thing and just take that one, that's not going to be like, I feel like I go back and forth with it probably 10 times and then give it another round of edits, even then before
Mhm.
publishing it live. So I think it's an amazing tool, an amazing thing to use to think through bigger plans, bigger strategies, and even pulling from other companies and how they've done it. And maybe, hey, show me an example. I really love seeing examples of how other companies, whether in my industry or not, do things. So I can take from that inspiration, but then infuse it. And I think AI gives me a great way of being like, hey, show me how I can come up with, or like other companies have come up with campaigns in this style or in this format and what I could do to create that strategy, but make it successful in this niche.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. As long as you're selling to humans, and not you definitely have to have the human touch to it. And AI is a good productivity tool so far, and I use it a lot. I've subscribed to a bunch of different AI tools, ChatGPT, Canva, Gamma, you name it. And I try to use them as an automation tool, but at the end of the day, the human element and the very customized approach to marketing is what wins it all. So we can't just automate everything.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. This so let me ask you another question. TikTok is right now is it's a very powerful platform. I for life of me, I never thought something like a Dubai chocolate would be like a thing because I've had stuff similar to that all my life, and I'm like, okay, it tastes good, but I would never pay $30 or $40 for it. And now people are buying $40 chocolate bars. Power of TikTok. Do you do anything with TikTok? Should brand jump on TikTok, especially B2C brand? What are your thoughts about just TikTok specifically?
Totally. TikTok, it again depends on your audience and also the content that you're creating. Because if you're a super technical brand and
Mhm.
let's say your content isn't created specifically for TikTok, which is how it needs to be to perform well, then it doesn't make sense to pull that trigger to get on TikTok because you would then need to have someone focused on creating content that's TikTok specific and also find out like, hey, is your audience like that technical audience? Is that where they hang out?
Yeah,
Is that where they are? And if so, if that is where they are they looking at business content specific to your niche there? Because if not, then I would probably triple down on LinkedIn where they are instead
mhm,
of diversify to TikTok. But then again, for like my influencer client, just on her personal, even though she has multiple accounts, she has probably 6 million followers. So 6 million followers on her TikTok there. And oh my goodness, like it is the thing we invest the most in terms of our
mhm.
time and the social team that I lead because of the power of it, like how quickly things can go viral, how quickly, if you're consistent in the amount of videos you're posting based on what the algorithm is looking for. And if you're in like the TikTok creator program, which she is, they'll tell you, hey, this month we're prioritizing carousels. And so then our team does that. And by following that model, we were able to grow her account an extra 100,000 in the last 30 days.
Mhm.
So again, I think it depends on your audience, but in terms of like virality, ease of use, like TikTok Shop, like the amount of things I've bought
Yeah,
from there that I don't need. So it depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Like when I've worked with pro athletes, like we got their merch live on TikTok Shop and that went crazy and people went and bought it and that makes sense because sports fans are scrolling for sports content. So an athlete's dropping their merch would make sense to be there. So again, I think it depends on your audience, where they're spending their time and the investment the company or brand or person is willing to put into that because again, doing those random acts of marketing. So let's say you throw two or three videos here and there, like that's not going to get the result
sure.
hoping for.
So know your ICP, your ideal customer profile, if they're in TikTok or not, and just focus on it, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just if 100%. Obviously, chocolate is a $40. Even if it's, I would never pay $40. Someone needs to give me that thing for free or like $10. I'm not paying $40 for that. But and I love food, obviously, but I'm not gonna pay $40 for a chocolate bar. But you can still get away selling $40, $50 stuff on TikTok. But if you're enterprise B2B brand, that's probably not a good place for you to invest your time. LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Yep, absolutely. And spending the time growing your community there. I think responding, seeing what people like jumping in on conversations, like brands that do that, I feel like that gets them pushed to the top of the algorithm. So again, it all I guess goes back to the goal because yeah, if you're selling a $40, which is a much lower cost to entry than a B2B enterprise brand with a 6-month deal cycle. Yeah, again, looking at
Yeah.
what
Have you done anything with the social listening tools and strategies? Do they work? Is it something worthwhile for brands to focus on, or should they just focus more on content creation?
So I think it depends. Like I've used a lot of social listening tools. So for my one of my previous clients, Treasure Data, they have a event every year called CDP World. And for the last 2 years, I'd served as like the full social person for the whole event. So it's like a full day and a half event of about 1,000 people who come into the conference, as well as like work with the executives on their socials. So my job was to not only do the socials for the brand, the strategy, getting our announcements out, recapping our keynotes and all of that type of thing, as well as speakers and partners, but also being able to pull in all the mentions of the hashtag, pull in all the social posts that came in from community so that leadership can see in one fell swoop how many posts were there, what was the sentiment, and then summarize that all for them. So I think for that, it is extremely important to use because it's so depending on obviously the volume as well, but being able to track hashtag usage, being able to pull like even for me, I would like sometimes hand grab based on the LinkedIn's API, the links to those posts coming in from the community. But then I would be able to put them on something like a tag board and have it so that it's all showcased in one place. So I could share with leadership, hey, here's a snapshot of what was said on LinkedIn at the event and before and after. And so I would track it for the 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, as well as the 2, 3 weeks after, so that people, when they post their recaps, I could include it in there and then the mentions, the overall reach. So I absolutely see the value in a social
Mhm.
listening tool. But again, is it for something like an event where you're going to have a huge influx of those mentions? Or is it something you just keep an eye on over time? And I think there's value in both as long as you have someone to assess that data, read it, and then come away with some actionable learnings.
Got it. Let me give you a more specific question. Like someone for us, we do a lot of thought leadership content. I personally create a lot of content on LinkedIn because I'm addicted, but
Yep.
also we produce a lot of content, thought leadership, and we want it eventually to translate into business for us. Would
Right.
it be more worthwhile for us to work out some sort of funnel, or I was thinking about maybe listening to a social listening tool where people are looking for, I don't know, let's say SEO expert, SEM agency, whatever. Would that be a good case of social listening tool? Would it be a good usage for social listening tool? Or but that's not what social listening tools are made for. Or you should probably just to stay up, you should use them for something else.
I think it's two things. One, if you want to assess the like performance of the content you're putting out there, I think I would look at that manually just to make sure you're capturing everything. So let's say it's for yourself and it's the last 10, 15 posts, and then analyzing those together of okay, which post did community engage on and how many impressions, and did we use an asset, did we use links, did we use that? So giving it like a once over in that sense and coming away with some like learnings and best practices. And then I think using a social listening tool for seeing where conversations are
Are
happening
taking place.
that are people are asking for SEO experts, and you could get flat pinged on that and then jump in on that conversation. Um,
Yeah,
so then having that as like a and then introducing yourself that way. And even I think the algorithm also prioritizes like the second, like that David post I mentioned with my husband, that was the bar brand. My entire feed is now that in this last 4 days. So I think if you start to even prioritize looking for that and even flagging that as like
got it.
a word,
Hmm.
then it'll come up in your feed so much more on
Hmm.
LinkedIn alone.
Got it. So just use the before getting using those tools. Just maybe you can to change the way you interact in LinkedIn, right?
And even just looking at LinkedIn's numbers, because I know LinkedIn has out of all the social platforms, they're the most difficult in terms of API integration with those listening tools.
Yeah,
Because you'll find the most, like, even when I've used social listening tools, I always triple check my numbers on LinkedIn natively just to make sure.
that's correct. Yeah,
And maybe that's just the perfectionist in me, because a lot of times it'll say impressions from LinkedIn as well as like comments, but it wouldn't have the exact click through rate and the conversion rate and like all of the exact numbers you see when you go to your own post page and you click the like view result section or your own analytics. So I think even cross referencing just to be sure.
yeah, good point. Thank you. I guess my last question is social media strategy, since you focus on organic part and we do a lot of ads, is that I've seen the organic and paid side at many organizations work in a silo, and I always question why.
Mhm.
There's a lot of data they can pass back and forth to each other. For example, you can have an organic post that went viral, at least got a good amount of impressions and views and engagements. That can turn into an ad, a successful ad, or vice versa. You had a good ad that could this should also be an organic post. What are some of your what do you think about that? What do you think about combining organic and I'm not necessarily the same person running both, but the organic social and the paid social persons should be talking to each other and strategizing and collaborating closely.
Absolutely, yes. At my one of my last clients, Treasure, that I've mentioned, we had such a beautiful working relationship with the myself, the organic team, as well as the paid team. And so we would
Mhm.
collaborate on, and what we would often do, depending on the plan or asset, is I would do organic first, and and then I'd send them the link of it, and then they'd after it had some social proof. So I would let it run on organic, let's say for 2 days, and so then it
Mhm.
gets 50 likes. Then they would transition it to paid, so then when people are seeing it as a sponsored post or as a paid post, it already has the 50 likes. So then they're like, oh, this already has social proof associated. And then they're more likely to engage with it. And so then we would often work together on any given campaign. So they'd be like, okay, Tiana is going to launch posts A through D. And then if they needed to get it live slightly earlier than I do, then maybe they would do like a one off, but then we would strategize on when we would transition organic to paid and then share like cross learnings. Like I'd be like, hey guys, here's what I'm seeing on the organic side. Let's implement on the paid side. Or hey, this asset worked really well on paid. Let's see if it does the same on organic. So we would be constantly A/B testing of
Yeah,
does it hit the same way? Does the but I would also adjust. Oftentimes they would write their ads obviously optimized for paid, and I
mhm,
would slightly adjust that to then
sure.
optimize for organic based on so that anyone who reads it could find that value. Whereas obviously for paid, it's going to be much more strategic in audience and audience targeting and segmentation and exactly what job title should read it. But I'd say that was an extremely valuable collaboration in any business, especially to get their most bang for their buck in terms of dollars and on ad spend. I think that's like a huge thing that people should focus on, and even have depending on the team size and how many paid ads you're running and all of that, like a weekly or bi-weekly sit down, whether it's one person on this side, one person that side, just to see, hey, let's try organic to paid. Let's A/B test what works here, does it work there, and can we optimize our ad spend based on these learnings?
Very cool. Awesome. I have a few questions for you that it's just yes or no, right? Like on LinkedIn, let's just focus on LinkedIn since that came up so much. Use emojis on your posts, yes or no?
Yes.
All right, cool. Use from time to time, use memes.
Yes.
Appropriate. Yeah, yeah. And post every day.
Is there a maybe?
Yeah, you can do maybe. Yeah, depends. You can
I
do.
think depends. I feel like as long as it's driving value,
Yeah, it must
yes.
have. Yeah.
But not in a way that's if it gets noisy and it's not necessarily focused on what the customer or the person you're targeting, if it's not driving value for them, then I'd say save the airspace.
Yeah, and post on weekends.
Depends on the brand and depends on if your audience is I'd say LinkedIn, no.
LinkedIn, no. And I think last question would be put personal pictures, like picture yourself or family.
I'd say yes for yourself if you're at a
If
conference,
you're
if
cute,
you're at an
if you're pretty. Like,
yeah, or if you have it like I posted a when I
"No, you look like Al. Don't do that."
oh, yes, definitely do it. I think if it's you just launched your brand and you got some merch or that type of thing, people want to see you. People want to
Yeah.
know that there's a human behind it, and that's what people are following you for is for you. So I think the more you personalize and humanize yourself to your audience, the more likely that they are to want to come back to you, work with you, keep that synergy going. So I'd say yes.
Cool. Awesome. Alrighty. That's all the questions I had on social media. We should have another podcast just about branding. Maybe we do that one in person in a podcast office where it's has a better setup. Do you have any questions for me? Is there anything I missed out that you want that you like to add to our conversation?
No, I loved it. I would love to explore doing a brand one together and doing it in
Yeah.
person. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the Clarity Digital podcast.
Yeah. So, well, where can people find you again? You mentioned your website, what type of services you offer,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. So
yeah.
if anyone wants to find me, Tiana Nove on LinkedIn, or my company is moonboost.io if you want to find me on my website. So yeah, if anyone wants to find me, those are the places and I'd be happy to hear from you.
Cool. Got to end this podcast with a couple of personal questions of just to make it fun. When you're not working, what are you doing?
Big lover of hot yoga and traveling.
Hmm.
Oh, going to New
Cool.
Orleans tomorrow. So
Nice.
always got the next travel spot ready to go.
Favorite food or cuisine?
Ooh, I'm biased, but I love Persian food.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. Awesome. And let me give you one more. If you could be a superhero from a comic movie or a book, which one would you be?
Ooh, I'd say Catwoman because I love her outfits and I'm a mom to two cats. So that's
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome. Tiana, it's been a pleasure, and I really benefited from this. I hope we can have you again on in future and talk about marketing in general, branding, social media. I benefited a lot. I hope our audience did as well. Thank you so much for your time.
yeah, thank you so much, Al. And thank you so much to the Clarity Digital audience. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. You have a nice weekend.
You too.
Okay, goodbye.